As we approach the halfway point of 2023, we got a lot to cover, so stay tuned. Welcome to another local market update with Rick Batista. Welcome to our monthly market update for June 2023, where we'll be taking a look at both national and local data to get a sense of what's going on in the real estate market today. The local data we'll share in just a bit is for Chicago proper, the 77 areas, and although we do service all of Chicagoland and including the Burbs, later in this video we're only going to dive into the city's data. So let's get started with some fun facts, and we'll share some other info and insights with you before covering the numbers. Fun facts, market time! Existing home sales slid for the second consecutive month, falling 3.4% nationwide as of last measure, according to the National Association of Realtors, as higher interest rates continue to impact buyer affordability. Sales are down 23% compared to the same period a year ago, while contract signings dropped 20.3% year over year. With sales cooling, buyers in some parts of the country have found relief in the form of declining sales prices, which are down 1.7% year over year nationally, although more affordable markets continue to see price gains. And we'll cover this month over month and year over year in greater detail in just a bit. New listings in the city of Chicago were down 18.8% for the detached homes and 27.5% for attached properties. Listings under contract decreased 4.1% for detached homes and 23.7% for attached properties. The median sales price was down 7.7% to $305,000 for detached homes and 1.4% to $360K for attached properties. Month supply of inventory increased 12% for detached units, but decreased 3.2% for attached units. While fluctuating interest rates have pushed some buyers to the sidelines, a shortage of inventory is also to blame for lower than average home sales this time of year, as current homeowners, many of whom locked in mortgage rates several percentage points below today's current rates, are delaying the decision to sell until market conditions improve. With only 2.9 months supply heading into May, available homes are moving fast, with a typical home spending just over 3 weeks in the market, according to the National Association of Realtors. Well, let's face it, folks, we're definitely going through a changing market. Not a difficult market, nothing like 2008 or 2020, but it's a market that's causing plenty of confusion. I'm here to help alleviate some of that confusion for you as quickly and thoroughly as I can. We do have a lot of information to cover, so let's get started. One of the most confusing things today and related to housing today is mortgage rates. I'm certainly not going to try and give you any projections as to where mortgage rates are headed, but I do want to try and explain to you why they're so much higher than we'd like them to be right now. For over 50 years, there's a spread. There's a 10-year treasury yield, and then there's a spread, something that's added to that by the banking industry to form the mortgage rate. That's their piece of the mortgage rate that they get to keep. And for 50 years, that number averaged out to be 1.72%. So whatever the 10-year treasury yield was, if you had a 1.72% on top of that, that would be your mortgage rate. Well, the challenge is, starting from the beginning of this year, we've blown that 1.72% away. We started 1 point above that, meaning mortgage rates were 1 point above where they would normally be. And right now, as of this recording, where we stand is we're over 3 percentage points above that. Almost double of what the normal rate has been. That's one of the reasons that mortgage rates are so high. This is very, very rare. And here's a quote from George Ratu. I hope I'm pronouncing that last name correctly. He's the chief economist at Keeping Current Matters. The only times the spread approached or exceeded 300 base points, and think of that as 3%, 300 base points would be like 3% in our lingo, were during periods of high inflation or economic volatility like those seen in the early 1980s or the great financial crisis of 2008 and 2009. The big question is this rare what's going on right now? And without a doubt, it is. Let's take a look at this slide that supports what George said. Very rarely does the spread jump over 3, but we're in one of those times right now. That again is the reason why rates are so high, especially compared to what we're used to the last couple of years. This is a quote from Odetta Kushi, the deputy chief economist of First American. It's reasonable to assume that the spread and therefore mortgage rates will retreat in the second half of the year if the Fed takes its foot off the monetary tightening pedal and provides investors with more certainty. However, it's unlikely that the spread will return to its historic average of 170 basis points, as some risks are here to stay. Now, I don't want you to get confused. Most economists use that 170 number. If you continue it out through this year, it jumps up to 172, but it's the same theory. It's about 170. And right now, that's not where we're at. We're over 3. What does that mean? Well, here's a graph explaining it. As of this recording, the 10-year treasury yield was at 3.65%. That's one of the components that makes up the mortgage rate. The orange is the spread. If we were at normal spreads, we'd have a 5.3% mortgage rate right now. You know what the market would be like if we were down at 5.3%? A little bit different. It would be crazy. To be quite frank, I'm sure it would be very crazy. And in some parts of the country, in some areas here in Chicagoland, they're pretty challenging for buyers. But we're at 3.2. And that means rates are touching 7, sometimes below, sometimes above. And I'm not sure when you'll be watching this video, but I'm sure that number could very well change by then. To touch again on what Odada Kushi suggested, that the spread's not going to go back to 1.72. But even if it were to be just a half a point higher, 2.25, we'd still have a mortgage rate under 6. That's the key, folks. Under 6%. In today's market with low inventory, it would likely cause a frenzy. But I think there's good signs that relief is coming soon, and I'm here to explain why rates are so high right now. I'm here to help you understand the market and how to better approach it if you're planning to buy or sell. I don't have to explain to you how important homeownership is. Americans get that. As a matter of fact, June is National Homeownership Month. So happy National Homeownership Month to those watching in June. The financial benefits of homeownership, well, let's go over them quickly. Building equity, building family wealth, building generational wealth, control over expenses. If you think buying a house right now is a little more expensive than renting one, wait 5 years and see what happens. Your mortgage payment will be about the same. Your rent payment probably won't be. Long-term savings, every time you make a mortgage payment, you put money into the bank because you get that money back at the end. Chances are. Look at it this way. If you want to build your wealth, own a home. If you want to build your landlord's wealth, rent a home. On top of what the bottom line will mean to you later on when you decide to sell, building equity gives you a strong credit history. And one of the greatest things about homeownership is the social benefits. So often we get so caught up in the money that we don't realize that it's really not the reason that people buy and sell houses. Their life changes. Their civic participation, financial education, the health benefits of owning a home, the privacy of having your own place. You can do all the property improvements that you like that aren't likely to be done when you're renting. There's tax benefits to homeownership also. There's the mortgage interest rate deduction, the property tax deduction, the imputed rent, meaning that we're saving the money that we're not paying on rent. And please know that we do plenty of rentals, so we understand the market from all angles and perspectives. Rents aren't going down, at least not in Chicago and the surrounding suburbs. So for many, even with the higher rates, you can likely pay less for a mortgage than renting. For some, that might not be the case, but when the time is right, you can buy now and refinance to lower that payment and make that statement true for your situation. And then for some, renting may just make more sense right now. And as we touched on a moment ago, one of the greatest benefits of homeownership is the bottom line. Should you stay in your house and or sell at a time that makes sense for you and your household, the equity is unbelievable. Right now, the average equity in the United States is somewhere around $300,000 per home. So on average, if someone were to sell their home right now, there's a good chance that they're going to be making $300,000. Yes, certainly have to take into account what the current mortgage balance is, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't know about you, but I would imagine that if landlord sells their property, they're probably not going to share those profits with you. And as silly as it sounds, it's just the harsh reality. Again, we're not here to push anyone into doing one thing or the other. We're here to share facts and data in order for you to explore your options as they pertain to you, your household, and what your goals are, short and or long term. Moving along, homeownership remains the #1 feature of the American dream. As a matter of fact, the Median Consumer Insights report recently came out saying that 78% of Americans associate homeownership with the American dream. So anyone telling you, well, I think that homeownership is not really considered the American dream anymore, they're wrong. Ask them where they got their information from, because every survey shows that the vast majority of Americans think just that. And almost every survey says that nearly 3 out of 4 Americans believe it. 65% see homeownership as a means of building intergenerational wealth. Now, what about the younger folks, those whippersnappers out there? The youth today, they're a renter society, right? Not the case. Perception is not always reality. According to this Consumer Insights report, 68% of millennials and Gen Z say investing in real estate is a smart financial decision. And 43% of millennials and Gen Z are considering buying an investment property. Don't let people that have opinions that aren't backed by anything sway your opinion that is backed by numbers. Show them the numbers and ask them to see theirs. Gallup does this every single year, America's opinion of what is the best long-term investment. This has definitely been a rough year for real estate in a sense. Mortgage rates are up, the mortgage payments are up, but still in 2023, real estate was seen as the best long-term investment, even better than gold that is skyrocketing right now because of the recession fears. Folks, real estate has been voted to be the best long-term investment for 11 consecutive years now. Americans believe in home ownership. What you're selling, they want to buy. They're essentially picking up what you're throwing down. But, and it's certainly a badonkadunk, but all the negative headlines that came out last fall, we're going to have another housing crash. It's going to be like 2008 all over again. Prices are going to fall 20-25%. They were all wrong. But the impact of all those statements affected the American consumer. At the end of December each of these years, this shows the number of Americans who thought that prices were going to go down over the next 12 months. So these are December readings, going all the way back to 2010, the first year they ever did this reading or took the survey. Well, we can see that in 2010 and 2011, as we were still getting through the financial crisis, those numbers jumped up to 18-17%. Then it came back down and things were okay and things seemed to be fine. Then all of a sudden 2022 hit. It skyrocketed to 37%, the highest number ever recorded. It almost doubled the next highest number. That's because there were so many negative headlines last year. Very prominent economists, very prominent global banks were saying that fall off the edge of the cliff. But it didn't happen. Yet these numbers got better. As we saw coming into this year, the real estate market didn't crash. The real estate market didn't say, oh my gosh, it's over. No, the word that everyone seems to be using is, we can't believe how resilient it's been. But I'm here to tell you it's going to get a little better. Now, as recently as of March, only 31% think prices are going to go down in the next 12 months. And that number just went up last month. April's the last number we have our numbers for. Main numbers aren't out yet, but we should be expecting those soon. So what I'm saying to you is that 1 out of 3 Americans still think that prices are going to fall this year over the next 12 months. I'm here to help you understand that that is likely not true. And that's my mission right now, to help you understand that. We certainly can't predict the future, but reading beyond the scary headlines and studying trends does not support the fear-mongering. Now let's go into home prices and what is actually projected to happen throughout the rest of the year. First of all, part of the questioning comes from the median home price. The median home price has basically become meaningless at this point. That's the number that the National Association of Realtors reports. That's a number like Redfin and some other companies report on. It's the quickest number to get. You get that number instantaneously. In normal markets for 25 years, that was a decent number to look at. But in the very volatile market, it's the worst number to look at. Again, it has no importance or value in today's real estate market. And we cover the local data for Chicago. I'll actually report on the median sales price and compare it to what the average sales price has been, just to kind of get an idea. As a matter of fact, Bill McBride from Calculated Risk, who's always been promoting the median price as a good way to take a look at pricing, just came out the other day and said, median prices are distorted by the mix, and repeat sales indexes like Case-Shiller and FHFA are probably better for measuring prices. The repeat sales take, well, there's a lag on it because it takes some time to get all the numbers together. But they say this is what this house is now worth, not what the median price is. The median price is just a middle price. As we're selling less expensive houses, the median price, the middle number, is going down. Bill's not the only one saying that. The Center for Real Estate Studies at Wichita State University said the median sales price measures the middle price of homes that sold, meaning that half of the homes sold for a higher price and half sold for less. It's not very useful for measuring home price appreciation because it is affected by the composition of homes that sold. If more lower priced houses sell, the median price goes down. It doesn't mean that the house is worth less money. As a matter of fact, in their example, they discuss this market exactly. For example, if more lower-priced homes have sold recently, the median sales price would decline because the middle home is now a lower-priced home, even if the value of each individual home is rising. That's our market. There are some more lower-priced homes being sold. The median sales price is declining. It ticked up last month, but even if the value of each home is rising, what they're saying is we're in a market where the median price is going down and regular prices, the real price, is going up. In today's housing market, we're selling more of the less expensive homes, thus driving down the median price. It doesn't accurately reflect the value of each house. We're talking about the median price. So now let's take an accurate look at home price movement. What is really happening with prices? Again, remember, last fall, people were saying it's going to fall 5 to 10%. Some were saying it's going to fall 15 to 20%. Some were even saying 20, 25%. Part of the reason that people aren't putting their house on the market right now is they still remember those headlines. Part of the reason people aren't buying right now is because they still remember those headlines. Now that they counted those headlines in a big way. So let's take a look. This data from Case-Shiller covers repeat sales. And to put in perspective, repeat sales indexes are accurate. Before I continue, I'd like to share a memory with you. One time I was managing kitchens before I was doing real estate. Longer story there. Check out my Q&A playlist on YouTube. One manager pointed out that they recognized I always did things correctly, accurately, even if it meant that I was going to take longer to do it. I just wasn't going to rush through something just to get it done. And that reminds me of now when we're trying to provide you with information. Do you want to be quick? Or do you want to be right? I'm more concerned about giving the right information versus tossing up a video because I read a headline. So again, let's continue. In the case of Case-Shiller, there's a lag. It's only March. The April numbers aren't out yet, but let's take a look at what has happened. The beginning of last year, things were taking off and we were just flying high. Then in July, things just came crashing down comparatively. Interest rates went up. It looked like all of a sudden there was going to be a load of listings come to the market. Didn't happen, but some people were projecting that. And all of a sudden, all these negative headlines came out and prices did start to fall a bit. And people will start saying, it's going to keep on cascading worse and worse and worse. Well, that didn't happen. The worst month was August, and it seemed to be balancing back out right now. The last 2 months, according to Case-Shiller, are showing positive, not negative. So month over month, the percent change at home value seasonally adjusted is showing that we might be past the worst of it. Remember, back in 2008 or after the crash of 2008, it took us almost 6 years for prices to come back to the positive. Here we're talking about 6 months. So Case-Shiller says prices are stabilizing. What does the FHFA say? Prices are stabilizing. They look at a slightly different set of data, so the numbers are slightly different, but the overall trend is exactly the same. We had a rough second half of the year, and now we're coming back. Well, what does CoreLogic say? CoreLogic says prices are stabilizing. Same thing, folks, same trend. Again, they look at a slightly different sets of data, so the numbers aren't exactly the same, but look at the trend. As a matter of fact, let's put all three of them together and look at all the trends. They're all saying the same thing. The three most reputable home price indexes are all saying the same thing. We had a great first half of 2022, we had a rough second half, and now we're on our way back. But I'm not sure that everything's going to be green from this point forward, but I'll be sure to keep you up to date with that as soon as the data comes out. But that cascading down, that falling off a cliff, that 20-25%, I can confidently say I firmly do not believe we're going to go anywhere near those numbers. In fact, we might end this year on a positive note. Even Zillow, love them or hate them, they see the same thing. Good first half of last year, bad second half, and we're coming back. What does Fannie Mae say? They do it quarter over quarter, but what do they say? The same thing. Great 2021, then a great first half of 2022. Then the second half we fell off, and the first quarter we're back up again. And even though the second quarter numbers aren't out yet, we'll have to see what they say. But all this is pretty interesting, right? One thing that I do want to touch on before we continue here is the reality of the situation. For the housing market, certainly had insanity and good times for plenty of people out there, sellers, buyers, probably more sellers than buyers, and definitely plenty of realtors and mortgage lenders. But the last couple of years was really rough on everyone, no matter if it was a good year or not for you overall. And I want to be very sensitive to that fact because I'm sure every single individual and household suffered at some point to some degree during and even after the pandemic. So many lost their lives or loved ones. And with that said, I'm not trying to erase that huge part of what happened over the last couple of years. I'm simply trying to report the data as it pertains to the housing market, while being mindful and respectful to all of you and how and what and who impacts the market. Now, with that said, let's take a look, because you're going to hear from so many people, well, this year's just not shaping up to be a great year. And it's very easy to say as the months progress and people are going to be comparing this year's data points to last year's. Yes, certainly not what it was last year or 2021 or from the approximately halfway point of 2020, but simply not a fair comparison. How can you compare what's happening this year to the two greatest years, in quotes obviously, in American real estate history in terms of sales and home prices? It was just an anomaly. That's something that wasn't supposed to happen. Certainly not a normal market by any stretch of the imagination. But just because the market isn't as insanely busy as it was, it's not a bad thing. It's normal. But people keep on wanting to compare what's happening now to that time, and that's just not right. It's like comparing how things are in your current relationship to a previous one, or a current lover to your last one. The only constant is you. Let's compare what we should be comparing. Let's compare what's happening now to the other normal year before mid-2020. Home appreciation is about the same. Pending listings, what do you know? About the same. And people can start complaining and saying pending listings are way down, and the showing traffic isn't the same as last year, et cetera, et cetera. Market times are longer. Inventory's up compared to what it was the last couple of years. Yeah. Listen, I've heard this one before, okay? Getting tired of it. But let's look at what we really should be looking at. Let's look at the more normal years of 17, 18, 19, and 20. And yes, things just started getting a little crazy mid-year 2020 when things started to open up a little bit as we progressed through the phases. But the insanity was certainly sure to follow in 2021 and the start of 2022. A lot of people think that there's less listings and less buyers. And I'm here to tell you that there's less quality listings and plenty of buyers looking to pull the trigger on a place that makes sense. Let's look at months inventory. I don't have the May number because hasn't been reported yet by the National Association of Realtors. This is April's number. But if we go to 17, 18, 19, and 20, they're not up, they're down. What we desperately need is more quality listings. And honestly, I don't worry about the headlines except for the fact that consumers are reading them. My clients, my customers, my prospective clients, that's the part that scares me about the headlines. It's almost like having a child and the two parents aren't on the same page. Naturally, the child is likely to sway toward one of the parents' ways. The point is, we're all putting information out there. I'm here to provide accurate information, and unfortunately, I don't have the same money and resources as mainstream media outlets, but hopefully more of you will come and consider me a solid resource to filter through all the bullshit that's out there. Because I totally get it. Who do you believe? Who do you trust? There's so much noise out there, and how do you make sense of it all? Well, I can proudly say that I don't push clients to make a decision. There's one Cuban saying that I like to follow, and I always like to keep in mind, especially when things don't seem to be going your way. And I'm sure that every culture and country has a very similar saying. But roughly translated, it says, what's meant for you, no one can take away. And again, I get it. it's hard at times to make the best decisions possible. The best decision is going based on info, data, your needs, your goals. And sometimes you have to make those scary decisions and choices that may land you exactly where you're supposed to be. Now, moving right along. Many may read that the foreclosures are increasing. The recession's coming, unemployment, et cetera, et cetera. Yes, I get it. The sky's falling. For many, that may be true. For many, that will become true, solely because that's what they choose to believe. Look, not to sound cold at all. Life happens, okay? People get sick. People can't pay their bills or medical bills. People pass away. People get divorced. People lose their job. They can't afford to pay their mortgages anymore. We, realtors, help many of those people before they ever get to the foreclosure stage or that foreclosure sale. But still, some foreclosures are going to happen every single year. During the last few years, of course, there was a lot less. Just in case you forgot, there was a moratorium. They weren't allowed to foreclose on houses. So now things are settling down. And the moratorium worked because there's not a run on foreclosures now. They helped a lot of families stay in their homes during difficult times. Difficult times financially, difficult times from a health perspective. And our goal is to help families stay in their houses too. Will the foreclosures go back to normal years? Yeah, that's likely to be the case. And if you find yourself in that situation or know someone or suspect someone who is, because sometimes they're just a little bit embarrassed and ashamed to talk about the tough times they're going through. But if you know someone who's close to foreclosure, please have them reach out to me. I've had experience with foreclosure, short sales, plenty of difficult and challenging situations like recent deaths, estate sales, divorce, tax liens, et cetera, et cetera. These are certainly areas that we excel in helping resolve. We covered a lot of information there. Hopefully it's all information that could be helpful or useful to you, whether it's a part or all of it. Now it's time to wake up! For the moment you've been waiting for. Let's talk about what's going on in Chicago. This information is provided by the Chicago Association of Realtors. It's current as of June 14th, covering the month of May. And since we just were wrapping up about foreclosures, let's take a look at the lender-mediated report before we get to the other stuff. The share of closed sales that were lender-mediated, 2.6%. If you take a look at the last several months going back to September of last year, we are definitely less than the last couple of months. So the sky is not falling when it comes to foreclosures, folks. From all the fun facts to quick facts, we're taking a look at one-year changes, first in closed sales for all properties, down by 28.2%, while homes for sale down by 26.6%, and the median sales price down by 4.3%. We'll definitely talk about that a little bit more, as we were earlier in this video about the importance of median sales price, or not. For the remainder of this video, we're just going to be taking a look at detached single-family homes. These reports do cover both detached and attached, attached being condos and townhomes. And we're going to be discussing two different sets of data. One is comparing May of 2023 to May of 2022, and then year-to-date through May 2023, comparing January 1st of this year through May 31st, 2023 to the same time period last year in 22. New listings, we wrapped up the month of May with 1,521 detached single-family homes, which was a decrease of 18.8% comparing both Mays. Year-to-date, 6,822, down by 14.5% year over year. Closed sales, 860, down by 20.4%, comparing the two Mays, and year-to-date, 3,328, down by 27.5% year over year. Pesky median sales price, we're going to see how that compares to average sales price. $305K, down 7.7%, comparing both Mays. Year-to-date, $295,000, down 6.3% year over year. Average sale price, big difference, $463,443, 7.7% less than the May prior, and the year-to-date $427,680, down by 9.7% year over year. And I think it's also very interesting to take a look at the average list price, because that's certainly kind of a good indicator. That was something that we talked about in our last weekly market update. If you haven't watched that one, make sure you take a listen. The average list price, comparing both Mays, $573,343, up by 7.3%. And the year-to-date, $516,459, down slightly by 0.7%. Looking at homes under contract, and those that are contingent or pending, we wrapped up the month of May with 954 single-family detached homes, down by 4.1%, comparing both Mays, while year-to-date we're at 4,082, down by 18% year over year. Percent of original list price received, they think this is a wonderful indicator of how desirable a city or neighborhood is. And we'll be covering some of the other areas and neighborhoods that we work in, so be on the lookout for those videos. But looking at both Mays, we were at 98.7% this year, 100.2% last year, so a little bit dipped down by 1.5%. And very respectable. Year-to-date, 96.6%, down by 2% year over year. Market time, another great indicator of how desirable a city or area is. We are certainly up. 76 days in the market, being the average days in the market for a single-family detached home in the month of May, up by 64.8%. Looking at the year prior, and year-to-date 81 versus 56, up by 43.2%. Inventory of homes for sale, we wrapped up the month of May with 2,037, down by 13.1% compared to May of 2022. So, what does all this information mean for you? Heck if I know. All depends on what's going on in your life and your household. Let's start a conversation and see how we can help you make the most informed decisions. If you'd like copies of any of these reports or slides that we shared with you or any of our recent videos, feel free to reach out. My contact information is below. You can always call, text, or email. And remember, love and money may come and go, but time is something you never get back. So I appreciate and thank you for spending some of your time with me. As always, if you want to stay on top of the market with us, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification button. And as always, take care of yourselves and each other. We'll catch you next time.